What's poppin' and welcome back to another video. It's a cold, rainy December Saturday here in Stockholm, Sweden, and it's become time to start purchasing and start making the plan for these stories and the content which we're gonna put in the app. Let me explain. So it's become time to start acquiring content and the stories which we're gonna put in the app. We have the structure, we have the app itself, and now we just need what's gonna go inside of the app for the first version, the beta version kind of thing. And I'm thinking that we're gonna need around 100 different, maybe a little bit more, 110, 120 different stories that we're gonna be able to put in this app from the beginning. And they're gonna be between, maybe a couple are gonna be like 3 minutes, maybe a couple are gonna be 15 minutes, most are probably gonna be around 8 to 12 minutes long. So it's like kind of bite size, you know, you can play it for your kid before they go to bed or whatever. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, it doesn't take a whole lot of attention span, you just play it, get it done with. But here's the thing, I'm not creative enough to write stories myself. If I'm gonna write kid stories, they're gonna be shit, you know. What are they gonna be about? People making code in their closet? I don't know. So we need professionals, and for that we need to pay cash.
Italians bring cash, okay?
So I've set a budget, and you know, I've been talking so many currencies like Swedish crowns, US dollars, euros, etc. But I've set a budget of around 2,300 US dollars for buying these stories. This is gonna be the main expense to begin with, but I've found a way to make it cheaper. Obviously, like probably most of you know, there's a thing called copyright. Most copyrights only last a certain number of years. Most of the time it's 100 years, sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes a bit more. I don't know why, but it depends on the location, but also the type of work which you're talking about. After these 100 years, these works enter into the public domain, meaning that they've been around for so long that right now they're public domains, like anyone can use them without having to own the right to them. And this is quite a few of the classic sagas or stories, like Red Riding Hood or whatever, Snow White, for example, Hans and Gretel, Rapunzel, those kind of famous old school stories that, you know, most kids still listen to or most kids still hear about and know about. They are not owned by anyone. So I'm not sure, I'm gonna have to look into this a bit more, but in most countries, I know in Sweden for example, and also in the US and most of the EU, you can use these stories without copyright since they've become public domain. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend most of the money on these public domain stories. We're gonna spend probably, of this initial budget, we're gonna spend half of it probably on classic works, because for the other works we're gonna have to pay someone to actually ghostwrite the story for us, and then we're gonna have to pay a voice actor to then voice act it for us. So it's quite the expenditure of cash. But therefore we'll reduce the cost if we get, for example, 75 classic stories to begin with before we can call the app initial version of the app complete, and that's gonna cost us around $1,200 just for the classic ones. So the remaining ones we're gonna have to first get one on Fiverr to ghostwrite the stories, and then we're gonna have to get someone on Fiverr to be the voice actor of the stories. I think maybe some of these I can write myself, like the ones which are meant to be educational, for example, or historical. Maybe they can be written yourself, I'm not sure, we'll see how that goes. But that's the initial plan for now. So with that said, let's hop on the computer, let's begin the planning of how we're gonna spend cash, the different categories we want. After that, we're gonna test some of these Fiverr artists, you know, maybe test a couple of voice actors, see which ones we like, see which one are reasonably priced. And then after that, we'll be moving on to doing this at a larger scale.
So I started off by heading over to project Gutenberg, which is a website where you can find all kinds of works which are in the public domain, meaning that their copyright time has expired and you're now free to use it however you please in almost all instances and cases possible. So I found this one book on Project Gutenberg, which is basically a collection of stories, and it's got quite a few famous ones like Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel for example. And I started off by taking all of these stories and packaging them into individual sagas which I could then ask voice actors to record for me. I found some pretty good ones, like a couple of short ones, a couple of longer ones, so it's gonna be a good mix of, for example, 2-minute sagas and 15-minute sagas. So it's gonna be fun to see what they turn out to be. And it's also gonna be good because a lot of these sagas are gonna be very recognizable for kids all over the world, no matter where you're from or how old you are, because they're classics, such as Rapunzel for example. So I was quite happy to find out that that was possible, and it's gonna save us some money in the beginning, because you know, at the very start we're not gonna have too much cash to splurge on these kinds of sagas. It's gonna be very nice to be able to avoid having to pay the ghostwriting fee in addition to the voice actor fee, and just pay the voice actor fee for these individuals, for these first sagas. I also started with some very brief saga planning and looking into what I'm gonna spend, as well as what kinds of sagas that I'm gonna have, and I made a plan for the first 100 sagas which we're gonna have, or it turned out to be 115. And we're gonna spend a total of $2,325 since that's the currency of Fiverr. We're just gonna use that. That works out to about 20k Swedish crowns or 2,000 euros. So I thought it was pretty good. We're gonna firstly, like I said, mainly go with the classics because one, they're cheaper to produce for me, and also because everyone knows the classics. You know, they're not gonna question a Rapunzel saga the same way they're gonna be questioning a Ghostwritten History saga, for example. But then the remaining, 40, we're gonna split across various categories. So we're gonna split it across like animals, sports, spooky, comedy, educational, adventure, history, all kinds of categories we're gonna have. So that's gonna be quite interesting to see what the ghostwritten ones turn out to be, and if we can start making our own line of sagas or possibly even characters to develop this even further. But I'm quite happy with this plan to begin with. It's quite a solid plan, and I think if we get these 115 sagas to begin with, we're gonna be in a very good spot to launch a pretty good beta version of the app. I then headed over to our favorite Fiverr.com and looked for voice actors who could help tell the sagas for the app. I found a couple of ones. Most of them were very expensive, some of them charging like $1 per word, which is, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, and especially for sagas to this length, it's gonna add up to a lot of cash. But I found a couple of good ones which were quite a bit cheaper, but still had a reasonable price. I didn't pick the ones for like $5 for a whole saga. One, because they're probably not gonna be good, and two, it feels a bit inhumane, you know, to be able to charge or just charge that amount of money for quite a bit of work. So I picked the ones which were like, they charge between $15 and $20 per saga, which I thought was good because we're aiming to end at an average price of $16 or so per saga. So it was a pretty good price for the budget which we have. I found one woman and one guy who seemed really good, and they had really nice samples, for example, so I decided to go with them. I placed quite a large order. Like the woman, I paid her $140, and the guy, I paid him $160. They pretty much had the same rate, but I think I gave the guy a couple of more words than I did to the woman. But I felt like it was a good price for me, and I wasn't exploiting them extremely either. So win-win kind of situation. Now all remains to see is what these people do with the orders which we have provided, and if they have any questions or anything like that, or if they, for example, start questioning how are you gonna use these, do you have to pay me royalty or things like that. I'm just waiting for that to happen, but hopefully it doesn't, and in the next video we will see what the output is like and what we get from them.
That was that, ladies and gentlemen. In the next video we're gonna see how some of these orders turn out. We spent quite a bit of money, probably like $300 today, so you know, quite a bit. We're gonna see how these Fiverr orders turn out. We're gonna review which ones we want to order more of, for example, and then we're gonna get to some of the saga finding, writing, all that whole deal. If you enjoyed this series and you want to see how this goes, you know, what happens to these sagas in the end, do we end up just wasting the cash, or do we end up making a successful app? We will see. But if you want to follow along that journey, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.